and Doge are getting a lot of pushback. But yesterday, President Trump pulled out the receipts of some of the government's most outrageous spending programs. Watch.
Then, where's the money being spent, right? Let's go into that for just a second. $520 million for a consultant on the environment. It's called Environmental, Social, and Governance. Investments in Africa. $25 million to promote biodiversity, conservation, and promote licit livelihoods by developing socially responsible behavior in the country of Colombia. Well, it's nice, $25 million going to Colombia for something that nobody ever heard of. $10 million for Mozambique voluntary medical male circumcisions. $10 million for circumcisions in another country. And $21 million for voter turnout in India. $20 million for fiscal federalism in Nepal. $1.5 million for voter confidence. We want to give them confidence in Liberia. $14 million for social cohesion in Mali. $2.5 million for inclusive democracies in South Africa. $47 million for improving learning outcomes in Asia. Asia's doing very well. They're doing a lot better than we do in the schools, aren't they? We're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars. I could, by the way, I could read this all day long.
All right, Laura, so in the bingo card of waste of our taxpayer dollars, I don't know if anyone could have predicted social inclusion, learning, circumcision, voter inclusion, the list goes on. But what a horrifying list that is. And thank God for Doge and President Trump now.
Yeah, and I would love to hear one person in the Democrat Party try to justify any of these line items. I mean, imagine you were a person who's been struggling the past 4 years, who's been trying to put food on the table, get the basics for your family, and you find out $10 million of your hard-earned taxpayer money is going overseas for circumcisions. They are indefensible items, and that is why Donald Trump is in there exposing it. You know, it's funny, I saw online the other day, somebody put the acronym for Doge actually should mean Democrats officially getting exposed, because I feel that that's what's going on every second.
That's good. All right, so Bill, to that point, and on top of that, we know that we've been funding the Taliban and terrorist groups, and still are, weekly to the tune of millions. But so Laura asks, how can the Democrats defend this? Well, Senator Cory Booker certainly tried, and in fact called out the fact that Elon Musk and Doge has access to taxpayers' information. Oh, the horrors. The reality is they are government employees, and so do the millions of current government employees that have access to our taxpayer information and have frankly stewarded it horrifically, as shown not only by these expenditures, by the constant breaches, by the constant wielding of it in weaponized form or fashion. And he concluded his statement, Senator Booker, by comparing it to Tiananmen Square.
Well, I think eventually Democrats have to come around, and I think a few of them have. Dean Phillips, former congressman out of Minnesota. Senator Mark Warner said something over the weekend that was contrary to what a lot of folks in his party were talking about. I saw the most fascinating interview yesterday. It was on CNBC. No offense, Fox Business, my colleagues. I love you. Alex Karp is the CEO of Palantir. And they're doing major business with the governments. They're deep into AI, and they're really, really successful. Karp is 57. He's probably worth $10 billion. He said, I've been a Democrat most of my life. He said, I'm tired of seeing Democrats commit suicide in front of all of us. And he blamed it on the progressives. And then he talked about two revolutions that are currently underway. One is transparency, and one is obviously AI. And he said, paraphrase, the intersection of all of this is coming together at exactly the right time, because you've got these large language models that now have the capacity to go into HHS or to go in the Pentagon or to go into the IRS and figure out what's going on behind closed doors, and they can code all of it, which I really think is what Musk's secret sauce is. He knows something that we don't know. He knows how you can develop programs that can build products if you need it, or build software that can give us answers. I like having Karp, an admitted Democrat, talk like that, I thought was eye-opening. And he almost suggested, it's just a question of time before we can pull other Democrats along. So maybe that's the next wrinkle in the story.
And Kayleigh, we know that the government has no income other than our taxpayer dollars. And we know, for example, the IRS spends $8 to try to claw back every $1 of our tax dollars if they perceive it as lost income. So I'm curious why the Democrats don't see the hypocrisy when they, for example, when learning that some of their pensions were invested in gun-connected manufacturers, they had a big problem with that. Why isn't there the same problem in this forensic accounting with the bloated waste, the horrific expenditures that don't reflect the will of the people? Why don't they have a problem with that now?
Yeah, their hypocrisy radar is very low, so that's probably the answer to that. Look, there's two ways to think about DOGE and our debt, and I think it's important and really puts it into perspective. Number one, CNN's been having multiple panic attacks over DOGE, and Stephen Miller had this epic moment yesterday where he went toe-to-toe with the CNN anchor, and he goes, our national debt is $36 trillion. Do you realize the interest we pay every year on our national debt is more than our national defense budget every year? So the amount to defend our country, we are paying an interest on the national debt. That's number one. If you don't care about that, let's move on to salaries. The average salary in this country is $67,000. That's rounding up. Just the money that FEMA gave to illegal immigrants, $80 million, just that. Simple math, go do it on your calculator. 80 million divided by the average salary. That means 1,194 people's salaries like that just vanished. Not their tax payments, their salaries. So when you think about these payments in terms of salaries, it's your money evaporated to illegal immigrants and your national defense budget gone.
Yeah. And Harris, DOGE has sort of tracked that. Now we're keeping track of what DOGE is doing. So far, they've talked about that they have saved $55 billion by canceling over 1,000 government contracts that Kayleigh was talking about that were determined to be wasteful or fraudulent. Now, that includes, to her point, those salaries, the amount of positions that they've extinguished, which, by the way, during my tenure as a federal attorney, for every position, for every person that left a position, for every two, they would only hire one. So, A, the formula for efficiency is not new, although not to this radical degree. And B, they have receipts for the efficacy, for the efficiency, for the transparency that, again, the American people wanted, and yet crickets on the left.
Yeah, I would take a deeper look at that just as that one example, and I'd want to know, well, did they cut the salary of the person that they kept? Did they bloat it, and so you didn't really see that much savings by getting rid of the second person when you hired one versus two? So I would have that question. To me, this is a battle over the sustainability of the United States of America. And the left sees that you can have open borders, which are very expensive to run a country if you've got open borders and millions of people coming in who have yet to prove that they will be viable in an economy, many of them illegal, many of them underage, so they can't work yet. So how do they help with our viability? The national security issue there. And to me, DOGE is knocking down that $36+ trillion in debt with an idea. Let's look for these things, the misspent money all over the place, not just in a few agencies. You've got to look for it everywhere because national security is paramount. You want to put military troops at the border. Border agents need more money right now. I think Americans might support finishing the wall, but where are you going to get the money from? So take it from places that the money was misspent. Viability for this country is the end game. And what Democrats were doing were making us insolvent. What Trump and his team were trying to do, and I think will do, is make us more solvent. And that's what we want.
Yeah, and I think Democrats viewed the United States of America as the size of the bloat of the federal administrative beast.
It
right?
could be
so
a huge balloon that's empty.
Yeah, they're fighting to sustain that, but the USA will thrive well outside of that.